One thing that's really happening here is that Israel's reputation around the world is being wrecked. This is going to be a permanent stain on Israel's reputation. And you want to remember, at some point, most of this shooting is going to stop, and people are going to then take stock of what's happened. And given that this is a thoroughly documented genocide in Gaza and all the murdering that's taking place on the West Bank and in Lebanon is being documented as well, lots of books, lots of articles, lots of videos and films are going to be produced showing what the Israelis have done. And I think this is going to be disastrous for Israel's reputation. Now, you can say that doesn't matter. All that matters is that they have this big stick that they use against anybody they don't like. And plus, they have the Americans in their back pocket. Well, that's all true. I do think a country's reputation and how the people in that country think about themselves does matter. And I think moving forward, this looks like a terrible situation for Israel. I think that the Russians have a deep-seated interest in working with the Iranians and helping the Iranians deal with Israel and deal with the United States. I mean, what's really happened here, if you think about it, is the United States, Europe, and Israel, those sort of three blocks working together, have forced Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea all close together. They form a big block themselves. And the Russians and the Chinese, they're working closely together. And the Russians are the ones who are working closely with the Iranians. The Russians understand they have a vested interest in helping Iran. And of course, Iran is helping Russia as well. We know how Iran has given Russia all those drones and has been giving Russia drones for a long time now. So I think the Russians are helping the Iranians. But I don't know exactly what's going on in terms of this agreement that they're said to be formulating. You talk to people in China, you talk to people in Indonesia, you talk to people in Doha, you talk to people outside the West, what Israel is doing and what the United States is doing by supporting Israel. And what you see is that people are almost unanimous in their intense feeling of animosity towards Israel and towards the United States. You know, one of the things that struck me on this trip, and again, I went to China, I went to Doha, and I went to Indonesia. People outside of the West have a very different discourse and think about the world very differently than the vast majority of people in the elite inside the West. And with regard to what Israel is doing in Gaza, and now with regard to Hezbollah and on the West Bank, people are horrified and they want this to stop. It's just that in most countries around the world, nobody is in a position to really exercise any leverage against Israel and get it to change its behavior, or to influence the United States for that matter. I don't think the United States can say no to Israel, any meaningful pressure on Israel to change its behavior. It's hard to imagine Trump putting pressure on Netanyahu. The fact is that the Israel lobby is just enormously powerful. And it's not only enormously powerful in the United States, it's enormously powerful across the entire West. And therefore, not only the Americans, but the Europeans as well are incapable of putting any meaningful pressure on Israel. I mean, when Macron starts barking at Netanyahu or barking at Israel, I think that Netanyahu just laughs. I mean, are you serious, Macron? What are you going to do? He's not going to do anything. The United States will protect Israel no matter what. We support Israel unconditionally. It's just hard for me to imagine any president getting tough with Israel. The lobby is just so powerful in this country. If Netanyahu gets into any trouble with the president, he knows that he can just go to the lobby and let the lobby go to work up on Capitol Hill. Look, more importantly, the Israelis have killed lots of Americans over time, starting with the Liberty, And what has the United States government done? Nothing. There you go. I mean, they do this all the time. They did this in 2006, right? They've killed huge numbers of people who were affiliated with the United Nations in Gaza. The Israelis kill whoever they want, and they get away with it.
Excuse me, is this where the baby killing technology is? This is the baby killing technology? We're trying to acquire a couple baby shredders. This guy looks like he shreds babies, sir. You shred babies? Sir, do you know where the baby shredding technology is? We're looking for someone that shreds them to pieces. You have that? No. We're with Levantine Defense Industries. Sir, you have that tech, sir?
Can you please move from here?
Can I?
Yeah. Can you
Do you
move?
have the baby shredding tech, sir? Don't touch my phone. Don't touch my phone. Sir, stepping towards me, sir. Sir, relax, sir. Sir, you need to relax. This is America. You're a foreign citizen.
Okay, can you please go ahead?
I got you, sir.
Yeah, but there's no reason for you to be here.
The Iranians have the ability to penetrate Israel's defenses. So if they launch a couple hundred missiles and then they launch another couple hundred missiles, almost all of them are going to get through. And if they target them at certain places, could do one heck of a lot of damage. And the problem here is that you're going up the escalation ladder. And the question you always want to ask yourself is, what's the next step? And who wins going up the escalation? I think the Israelis, as I've said before, are in deep, deep trouble. They've not defeated Hamas. They've not defeated Hezbollah. And I think they don't have escalation dominance over Iran. And Iran can pound them just as much as Israel can pound Iran. And you have to ask yourself, in that situation, who wins? How do you tell a happy story for Israel at this point in time? How do you tell a happy story for Gaza, for the war against Hezbollah, and a war against Iran? I just don't see how you do it. What matters is that when Israel went to war against Hezbollah, when they assassinated Nasrallah, when they invaded southern Lebanon, when they started pounding southern Beirut and a lot of the villages in southern Lebanon, all of this was designed to stop the firing of rockets and missiles into northern Israel. That's why the Israelis, turned up the heat on Hezbollah. And what's happened is, if anything, Hezbollah has increased the number of rockets that it's firing at Israel. Killing Nasrallah did no good. Invading southern Lebanon did no good. Bombing southern Beirut did no good. So this incident where at least 4 Israeli soldiers were killed, this was the Golani Brigade. It was an elite brigade that they targeted very effectively, is just evidence that Israel's policy against Hezbollah is not working, just like its policy against Hamas is not working, and just like its policy against Iran will not work. I think at this point in time, they probably can find some hostages, but the problem they face is if they go after the hostages that they can find, Hamas will kill them. Hamas has made it clear that that's the policy now, and that deters the Israelis from going after the prisoners. I wouldn't be surprised if the Israelis know where some of the prisoners are, but just are not willing to go after them because it would end up with those prisoners dying. Well, the issue of annexing the West Bank is not, in my opinion, a very important issue relative to Gaza and relative to Iran. I mean, the fact is, if the Israelis go out and annex the West Bank, what is Trump going to do? The answer is nothing. So he can say that he's not going to allow Israel to annex the West Bank, but that assumes he has coercive leverage over the Israelis, and he doesn't. They can do pretty much what they want. And if they want to annex the West Bank, they'll do that. I might add, by the way, that I think the principal reason the Israelis are reluctant to annex the West Bank is because of what the Saudi reaction will be and how that will foreclose an Abraham Accord with Saudi Arabia, and what the UAE response will be, because there's a chance the UAE will take the existing Abraham Accord and throw it in the trash can. But again, I don't think that's the key issue. The key issue is stopping the genocide. Trump is complicit in the genocide. He's as guilty as his predecessor, and he's done nothing to slow it down. And if anything, he's continued to fuel the genocide. And I see no evidence that that policy is going to change. With regard to Iran, I would imagine that the reason that the 3 European countries put the snapback sanctions on, they go back on September 28th. It was on August 28th that the E3, those 3 European countries, called for snapback sanction. And there was a 1-month grace period. So they go back on September 28th. The Iranians have said very clearly that the end result of this is we're not cooperating with the IAEA. That means nobody will know what the Iranians are doing with their nuclear program. We really don't even know how much of their nuclear program survived the 12-day war. And it could be the case that a lot survived, or even if a lot didn't survive, they have the capability to rebuild the program quickly. Who knows? But you're not going to know without IAEA inspectors in there. And with the snapback sanctions coming, IAEA inspectors are not going to be in there. And that's going to allow the Israelis and their cutouts in the United States to argue that Iran is racing down the nuclear path. And you know what that means in terms of the likelihood of an Israeli/American attack on Iran. So things are set up for more trouble on the Iranian front. There's no end in sight to the genocide in Gaza. The Israelis are pounding away in southern Lebanon. They're pounding away in southern Syria. They're doing horrible things on the West Bank. And I think there's even a possibility of a shooting war with Egypt, because it's very clear that the Israelis would like to expel the Palestinians into Egypt. And the Egyptians, anticipating this, have reinforced and strengthened their forces in the Sinai, which has made the Israelis very unhappy, because the Israelis would like to push the Palestinians into the Sinai. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it's likely, but I wouldn't be surprised if you had a war between Egypt and Israel. But things are as bad as ever in the Middle East. I think that's the bottom line. Well, there are a lot of questions here. I think when you read that headline, it makes it seem like the Israelis today have a window of opportunity. In other words, before Iran rebuilds those ballistic missile sites, they can go in and wreck them, and in effect, take away Iran's capability to hit Israel. But you want to remember that when the war ended, the 12-day war, the Iranians were pounding Israel with ballistic missiles, and the Iranians made it clear, and nobody contested them, that they had a lot more missiles left to pound Israel with, that they could go on continuing to pound Israel for weeks, and that they had actually withheld some of their, or a lot of their, best ballistic missiles. Now, if that's true, and I see no reason to think it's not true, that means that regardless of this rebuilding that's in the slide that you just put up, the fact is the Iranians still have a heck of a lot of ballistic missiles with a heck of a lot of firepower. And if Israel picks a fight with them now, Israel is going to get pounded. So I'm not sure there is a window of opportunity here. And the other thing you want to remember is that the Iranians have other cards to play. And one is shutting down the Straits of Tehran and making it impossible for oil to come out of the Persian Gulf, which would have a huge effect on the world economy. So the Iranians have cards to play, and the Israelis and the Americans surely realize that. But I still wouldn't be surprised at all if the Israelis attack Iran sometime in the fall, and that we jump into the fight as well. I think that if you look at their nuclear program, This is the Iranian nuclear program. It's quite clear that the Iranians have the ability to secretly build nuclear weapons. They can build nuclear weapons in places we don't see. And in some places that we do see, they can put them deep enough underground that we can't get to them, even with these huge bunker buster bombs that we have. So I think there's no way the United States can use military force in conjunction with the Israelis to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons if Iran wants to get nuclear weapons. Now, the Iranian president and Ayatollah Khamenei have both said in the past 2 days that Iran does not want nuclear weapons, that they're not going down the nuclear road. I don't know whether you can believe them or not. If I were playing Iran's hand, I would pursue nuclear weapons and at the same time say, I don't want nuclear weapons. That would be the smart thing to do. But I'm not sure that the Iranians don't mean it and that they're not pursuing nuclear weapons. But again, the thing is, if you don't have IAEA inspectors in there, which will be the case if snapback sanctions go on in 4 days, then you can't see what the Iranians are doing. And if you can't see what the Iranians are doing, you and I know very well that the Israelis and the Americans and the Europeans will assume worst case. And they'll spin out all sorts of stories about how Iran is on the threshold of acquiring a bomb, and that's why we have to go in and attack Iran right now. But then again, as you pointed out, that does not solve the problem, right? You have to go in there on the ground if you're going to destroy the nuclear program. You have to go in and find it. And we're not going to invade Iran.